Hey YouTube, it's me, Corvid. Now, a viewer of mine, 3sim159, has asked me to do a video on New Zealand statistics because he has a friend who's making an educational video game for teenagers and he wants to make sure that they include the right statistics in there and not just some feminist bullshit propaganda. So I thought I'd do him a solid and actually take a look. In particular, the 1 in 3 stat that feminists love to throw around, either violence or rape statistics or prevalence, since that seems to be their favourite whipping horse. And when I went to find stuff, it was very interesting. If you Google search 1 in 3 New Zealand women, it comes up with a site that says, statistics, it's not okay. If you then go to that website, it is basically family violence, it's not okay. It's a website against family violence, and I think we can all agree family violence is crap and we should have it not happen. And then it has a list of statistics. Now, I know you can all see this. All of those stats are a thing, probably. I don't know. I don't have time to go through all of their bullshit references, which pretty much derived from not very good science. I mean, they've got small participation numbers, poor participation numbers of people selected, and some of them are a bit self-referential, and most of them are from institutions who get government money to study these things, so of course they have an implicit bias because they want there to be lots of family violence and rape and stuff, because then they'll get money to do more research on family violence and rape. So I'm a bit unlikely to believe the things they produce just based on the fact that it's a bit dodgy. So instead I'm just going to go down to look at partner abuse, and we'll look at the 1 in 3 women experience physical and or sexual violence from a partner in their lifetime. Now you see that that is reference 10, and when we go to reference 10, it says that it is from a article called Sticks and Stones or Words, Counting the Prevalence of Different Types of Intimate Partner Violence Reported by New Zealand Women. Now, I tried to find that article, but it's behind a paywall and requires $100 just to view it. And the person who's responsible for it works for this organisation, the New Zealand Family Violence Clearinghouse. Now, they are the National Centre of New Zealand for Research and Information on Family and, I assume that's Maori violence, in New Zealand. They provide information and resources for people working towards the elimination of family violence. So, clearly they have no reason to overblow statistics at all. It's not like their entire funding base is entirely dependent on there being a problem. So, I think instead, I might use this. The New Zealand Crime and Safety Survey, which is organised by the Department of Justice of New Zealand. Now, this survey involves 7,000 randomly selected people throughout New Zealand, and they are asked about their personal experiences. It collects information about New Zealanders' feelings of safety and their experiences of crime. And it aims to provide information about extent and nature of crime, measure how much crime gets reported to police, so it also measures the incidents as reported by the 7,000 people they interview, and also how many of those people reported those crimes to the police. Understand who experiences crime, how they react, identify groups that are more at risk, understand the experiences and needs of victims, and measure crime trends in New Zealand. So, overall, way more fucking useful than any of the references that the other sites we looked at actually had. Now, I'm not going to go really in depth in this, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the findings, mostly because I'm lazy and I really don't want to have to dig through all of this. It will literally take me weeks to point out and nitpick the entire thing, and I don't have that kind of time. I got fucking Batman waiting for me, so I'm just going to give you the overview. Now, you can get to the New Zealand Crime and Safety Survey via the Statistics New Zealand homepage. It's really good, easy to use, I recommend it. Same as the Department of Justice, you can get to that, and it's also really easy to use if you ever need stats for something or you want to know. They're actually really good websites, much easier to use than the Australian ones. And just from the summary page, we know that men and women are just as likely to be victims of crime in New Zealand. Gender is not a deciding factor. Neither men nor women were more or less likely to be the victim of violent interpersonal offence when compared to the average. So 1 in 10 people in New Zealand will experience a physical altercation of some sort in a year. That's just a stat. And we know from their handy little infograph that 4% of men will experience a violent interpersonal offence committed by a stranger, whereas 6% of women will experience a violent interpersonal offence by an intimate partner. So essentially, that's how it levels out. Men will experience more violence from strangers, and women will experience more violence from an intimate partner, and that's how they both get to 10%. Oi, but yeah, Corvid, isn't violence trending up? Isn't it on the increase? And to that person, you can say, no, shut the fuck up, here's an infograph. Now we can see here, interpersonal violence, 10.4%. The percentage of that committed by a family is 6.4%. Of that committed by the community, also 6.7%. So, about equal. Which means random strangers will attack you just as often as your family will. I hope that's not an issue. When it comes to family, half of all family-committed interpersonal violence is committed by an intimate partner, 3% committed by other family. In the community, the 6.7%, 4.5% is by people who know you, so friends and acquaintances and workmates, and 3.4% by random strangers who just deck you on the street. Now, you'll notice at the bottom of all of these things, it says down, which means all violence committed by people on other people is trending down, and has been for a while now. Intimate partner down in 2013 from 2008 from 7% to 5.1%. Other family down from 4%. People known down from 8% to 4.5%. Strangers down from 6%, so strangers has halved since 2008. New Zealand society is safer in 2013 than it was in 2005. Oi, but yeah bruh, sexual violence is on the up, isn't it? Well, no, it's pretty much the same as it ever was. Well, actually, it's trending down 0.7%, but it's not really that big of a downwards trend. It is decreasing slightly over time. But given that it's, the total amount of sexual violence that happens in New Zealand is 2.1%, that's pretty low to start with. I'm not saying it's perfect because, nothing is ever perfect. Perfect would be 0, but people are cunts. But 2.1% is not that bad. It's still way better than a lot of other countries have. I'm not saying that's an excuse to be lax, but still, that's a stat that you could feel a little bit chuffed about, that it is that low. You're doing something right if it's getting down around the, low end of 2. Which brings me to the final bit I want to talk about. So sexual violence, every year in New Zealand, 1 in every 50 people will experience sexual violence, with that person being 4 times more likely to be female than male. When it comes to physical violence, 1 in every 10 people in New Zealand will experience interpersonal physical violence, with men experiencing 1% more from strangers and women experiencing 1% more from intimate partners. Why don't you look at lifetime prevalence, you say? Well, because it's shit. I think it makes perfect sense not to look at lifetime prevalence because, of course, in the past, these stats were much, much higher, so all you're really doing is looking at how bad today is compared to how bad it was previously. It doesn't really tell you anything. All it tells you is that shit used to be worse than it is now. It's really not all that informative, and so I personally don't like to use it as a comparative stat. I think it's kind of fucking pointless. Not only that, but if you're a man who's experienced violence, you are less likely to report that as part of your lifetime stat because men are more likely to be forgiving of physical altercations than women are. So men are less likely to report that they had experienced stuff 20 years ago because they've just fucking forgotten it. Whereas women are more likely to report that they'd experienced violence 20 years ago from some stranger because it sticks out. It's an anomaly. It's not the expected, and so therefore they're more likely to remember it. And that's just my personal opinion. I just like looking at the stats from the most recent year because I feel that's the most informative. It gives you an accurate measure of how much violence and what kind of violence and who experienced it in that year, which is way more informative than asking people about their entire lifetime, where they can forget stuff and the memory plays tricks on you, and things that you've thought a hell of a lot about can suddenly change in your mind, and they're not the same as they used to be, because brains are fickle things, and they forget stuff and rearrange things and make shit up. So, yeah, previous year. Much, much more reliable stat. Anyway, 3sim159, I hope this has made things a bit clearer for you, and if you need a more convincing infograph, I can probably drag one together for you should you need one or feel that it's necessary. Yeah, so 1 in 10 people will experience violence, and it's pretty much the same for women and men. It's just the nature of the perpetrator changes from gender to gender, but the actual amount of violence is the same. Women and men are also equally as likely to report incidents, no matter what kind, to the police. There is no disincentive for women to report. They report just as often as men do. And of the 6% of women that experience partner intimate crime, 2% of that also may include a sexual component. So, there you go. It's the same as the average rape stat. So in conclusion, no, we are not in the midst of a rape epidemic. No, we are not in the midst of a family violence epidemic. Yes, reporting has gone up, but that's just because we've impressed on people how important it is to report things, even if they don't consider it very serious. Reporting has just improved. The actual incidence doesn't seem to go up. And stop using lifetime prevalence. It's a shitty stat and takes into account stuff that happened in the fucking 50s and 60s, and we know shit was worse then in terms of these stats. Anyway, let me know what you think down below in the comments. Do you think I missed something? Did I fuck something up? Let me know if I did. Rate, comment, subscribe, all that shit if you want. No pressure. And I'll see you on Saturday, whenever I manage to put this up. Yeah. Bye!